According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, foreign direct investment in the region will fall by up to 55% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The UK Health Department announced it has authorised the use of the coronavirus vaccine developed by German company Biontech and its US partner Pfizer. President Vladimir Putin has hailed the Armenian Prime Minister's courage in agreeing to a peace deal for the Nagorno-Karabakh region. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, foreign direct investment in the region will fall by up to 55% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The figures represent the world's most pronounced regional decline, the Commission noted in a report released at its headquarters in the Chilean capital, Santiago, this Wednesday. The fall of foreign investment has been a constant since 2012, when the region reached its historical maximum based on a boom in raw materials. Among the worst performing countries are Peru, where investment fell by 72% in the third quarter, followed by Colombia with a fall of 50% and Brazil of 45%. Only Mexico has held up relatively well with a drop of 6% in the third quarter.
For the time being in 2020, we are going to experience a worldwide drop of 40% in direct investment, and in Latin America the drop will range between 45% and 55%. It is a region where foreign direct investment will fall most worldwide, and obviously the fall impacts all productive sectors.
Guatemalans continue to mobilize to demand the resignation of President Alejandro Diaz. Social, rural and indigenous movements have maintained roadblocks and stressed that they will not negotiate their lifting, while demanding that the president, the congressional leadership and other officials present their resignations. The protesters denounced the corruption of the political elite, which they stress directly affects the Guatemalan people and is currently preventing people affected by the recent hurricanes from receiving humanitarian aid. The protests were sparked by the passing of the controversial 2021 budget, which cut funding for human rights agencies, healthcare, education and the judiciary. Although Congress has since annulled the budget, citizens are voicing further demands, including the formation of a plurinational state. Organisations representing the victims of extrajudicial killings in Colombia held a sit-in in front of the headquarters of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace to demand the exclusion of former Army General Mario Montoya Uribe from the peace court's proceedings. At least 10 victims' organisations are participating in the sit-in, while the protest is also being shared on social media. Montoya Uribe served as a general in the Colombian National Army until his resignation in 2008 amid the so-called false positive scandal. The scandal and associated trials involved the killing of civilians by military personnel to inflate body counts of combatants during the conflict between the government and guerrilla groups. Victim advocates have accused the former general of withholding information from the courts during a previous appearance in February and of denying his responsibility for the killings of more than 2,000 people. Preparations for Venezuela's parliamentary elections to be held on Sunday are advancing. Military personnel are being deployed as part of the Republic Plan to guarantee peace and the security and transparency of the voting process. Around 200,000 troops from the Bolivarian National Armed Forces have been sent to the different regions of the country, while the National Electoral Council continues to advance the distribution of the necessary electoral materials to all states. Meanwhile, the international delegations that will observe and accompany the election process continue to arrive in the South American nation. Mobilizations against mega mining projects continue in Argentina's Patagonia region. This Tuesday, marches were held in various locations in the province of Chubut, as commissions of the provincial legislature debated the mining project promoted by Governor Mariano Arcioni. Protests were also held in Buenos Aires, Chaco, Rio Negro, Santa Cruz, Neuquén and Entre Rios. Local communities have stressed that they will remain mobilized in defense of water and their territories against the damage that the mega mining project entails.
We're going to continue protesting because we need to, in this disaster in Chubut province where Arcioni, together with mining companies, want to impose a deceitful project behind the people's back and full of disasters, without consulting the indigenous people, without consulting technical experts, and opposing our initiative signed by 30,916 people of Chubut. This is a deciding week for us, for all of Chubut, and we are here telling the government that we do not want zoning, that we want clean water, that we do not want pollution, and that Chubut is not an area to be sacrificed.
The director of the Pan American Health Organization warned Wednesday of the rapid increase in COVID-19 cases throughout the region, while also speaking out against racism in regional healthcare systems.
This past week, 1.6 million new cases and 22,000 deaths from COVID-19 were reported in our region. In the month of November alone, we had over 6 million new cases reported in the Americas. That is nearly a 30% increase from the numbers at the end of October. The roots of many of these inequities are entangled in our region's long and complex colonial history, which is stained by social injustice and the enslavement of Africans, a heritage that we have not yet overcome, and we see play out in our health systems. Indeed, systemic racism may pose barriers to appropriate care, result in mistrust in health providers, and ultimately cause worse outcomes for Black patients in many countries in our region. COVID-19 has shed a harsh light on this reality, and against the backdrop of urgent calls for racial equality in the United States, Brazil, and other countries in our region, we urge health authorities to face this pressing challenge.
The United Kingdom's Department of Health announced on Wednesday it had authorized the use of a coronavirus vaccine developed by German company Biontech and its US partner Pfizer. According to a statement, the UK government accepted a recommendation from the Independent Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency to approve Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine for use, and it will be available throughout the UK from next week. British Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the country's state-run National Health Service would start vaccinations with 800,000 doses early next week. The mass vaccination programme is set to begin with elderly care home residents and frontline health and social care staff.
This vaccine has only been approved because those strict tests have been done and complied with, and everyone can be absolutely confident that no corners whatsoever have been cut.
And during an online press conference, executives of German lab Biontech noted their commitment to fair allocation across all countries that wish to obtain the vaccine developed with American firm Pfizer. The two companies have said they expect to supply up to 50 million doses globally in 2020 and up to 1.3 billion in 2021.
At the beginning to deliver this vaccine to the world, and that means fair allocations across all countries that wish to use have our vaccine. So no, not all of the doses that we produce go to the UK. The UK gets, like every country, a fair proportion.
It is important to have an impact on the pandemic. The vaccine needs to reach sufficient number of people, and there are a number of models indicating that an impact on the pandemic spread starts to happen if 30% of people are vaccinated, but we will have only get a full effect if we reach about 60 to 70% of the people having a protective immune response, and that should be the aim, to get this coverage until end of summer next year.
Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said Wednesday that China is willing to strengthen cooperation with Russia in different fields amid the COVID-19 pandemic at the 25th irregular meeting between Chinese and Russian heads of government. Co-chairing the meeting with his Russian counterpart Mikhail Mishustin via video link, Li said China and Russia have made progress in various areas against the backdrop of global economic contraction and sluggish global trade and investment caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Li pointed out that China and Russia work together to maintain the international order with the United Nations at its core and safeguard multilateralism and free trade. China hopes to align its Belt and Road Initiative with Russia's development strategies, consolidate traditional cooperation, and make new breakthroughs in cooperation in fields such as trade, energy, and agriculture. The UN Secretary-General denounced a suicidal failure to combat global warming this Wednesday, while stressing that recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic could be humanity's chance to work to save the planet.
Put it simply, the state of the planet is broken. Dear friends, humanity is waging war on nature. This is suicidal. Nature always strikes back, and it is already doing so with growing force and fury. COVID-19 lockdowns have temporarily reduced the emissions and pollution. But carbon dioxide levels are still at record highs and rising. In 2019, carbon dioxide levels reached 148% of pre-industrial levels. In 2020, the upward trend has continued despite the pandemic. COVID recovery and our planet's repair must be the two sides of the same coin. The world has not met any of the global biodiversity targets set for 2020. And so we need much more ambition and greater commitment to deliver on measurable targets and means of implementation, particularly finance and monitoring mechanism.
Hundreds of Indonesians have fled their villages after a rumbling volcano spewed hot ash thousands of meters into the air and belched lava down its crater. Mount Semeru on Java Island spouted a towering column on Tuesday, prompting a call for around 500 people to temporarily evacuate their homes. Footage from the scene showed dead livestock covered by pyroclastic flows, a fast-moving mixture of hot gas and volcanic material, as steaming debris flowed into a nearby river. The chief of the local disaster agency warned on Wednesday that residents could still be at risk as heavy rains threaten to trigger more volcanic flows from the still spewing crater. Indonesia is home to about 130 active volcanoes due to its position on the Ring of Fire. The Chinese probe that successfully reached the moon on Tuesday has begun collecting samples from its surface in the first attempt of the last 40 years. The China National Space Administration announced Wednesday that the Chang'e 5 spacecraft has sealed up soil samples obtained from beneath the moon's surface and is ready to continue collecting more samples from the surface. The samples will be sent to Earth in a capsule that should land in China's Inner Mongolia region in the coming weeks. The success of the mission would represent a remarkable space advance for China after the successful landing of a ship on the hidden face of the moon in 2019, an unprecedented achievement in the world. And China's Foreign Ministry on Wednesday said the country was devoted to peace and international cooperation in outer space after the Chang'e 5 probe successfully landed on the moon.
I would like to emphasize that China has always been committed to the peaceful use of outer space and has been actively engaged in international exchanges and cooperation to share the results of space development. China will continue to promote international cooperation and the exploration and use of outer space in the spirit of working for the benefit of all mankind.
Russian President Vladimir Putin held the courage of the Armenian Prime Minister in agreeing to a peace deal over the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which triggered strong reactions against the leader at home. Armenia signed a Russian-brokered accord with Azerbaijan on November 9th, after 6 weeks of heavy fighting over the disputed region. Under the deal, Armenia ceded 3 districts in addition to 4 others that Azerbaijani forces reclaimed during the fighting. The Russian leader's show of support for Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan came as the Armenian Prime Minister faces pressure at home. The Armenian authorities last month said they had foiled a plot to assassinate the Prime Minister. Pashinyan said the peace deal was Armenia's only option and that it ensured Karabakh's survival.
Through a very difficult period in their history now, the Armenian government had to make very difficult but necessary decisions. These decisions are very painful and they require a lot of personal courage on the part of the Prime Minister. Our task now is to support both the Prime Minister and his team in order to ensure peace.
Moroccan authorities have announced an ambitious vaccination campaign against the novel coronavirus by the end of this year. The North African nation is hoping to immunise 20 million adults within 3 months using vaccinations from China's Sinopharm and the shot developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University.
It will be on a large scale, as it is on the national level. This is not a campaign that will last for a year, since we wanted it to be a very short one, over a duration of 12 weeks. Herd immunity depends first on the amount of vaccines and on the number of people that will be vaccinated. The World Health Organization recommends over 60% of the population to be vaccinated. We made a choice to reach 80% as part of the campaign. The Chinese vaccine should not be stigmatized, as Sinopharm is one of the best companies that exist worldwide. It is the 7th largest producer of vaccines internationally. The vaccine that we have chosen is an inactivated one. It is one of the most conventional and safest methods. It is like the flu vaccine, the polio vaccine, and the diphtheria vaccine. Those are inactivated vaccines that have been effective for years and years.
Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, under pressure following months of street protests, survived a legal challenge this Wednesday that could have seen him thrown out of office. The kingdom's 9-judge constitutional court ruled that the Prime Minister was not guilty of conflict of interest by living in an army residence after leaving the military. The court ruled that his status as Prime Minister entitled him to live in the house, even though he stepped down as Army Chief in 2014. As the judgment was read out, about 3,000 protesters massed for a fresh rally at a major intersection in northern Bangkok. Many of the protesters carried inflatable yellow ducks, which have become a symbol of the pro-democracy movement, which is calling for the PM's resignation, reform of the monarchy and a new constitution. Sudan's Rakuba camp is becoming overcrowded with many refugees fleeing the conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region. The influx of refugees have left many scrambling to find adequate shelter and enough food to keep them from going hungry. More than 45,000 people have fled northern Ethiopia since November 4th, after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered military operations against leaders of Tigray's ruling party in response to alleged attacks on federal army camps.
All my children are sick because they're not used to the food that they are eating here. Back home, we were doing fine. My husband worked at a bank and I used to work at a supermarket. Now we left everything behind and we came here. We have no money or anything and we need help.
We don't have any blankets or mattresses, nor water or food. We feel as we were just living in the bushes here. Our country was secure. We left our homes, our cows and our food. It has all been taken by the fighters and we have nothing here. We are very hungry and we don't have a choice.
The assassination of Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was confirmed and condemned in Syria, as well as in all the countries that are part of the axis of resistance against the Israeli occupation of Palestine. Our correspondent Hisham Wanas brings us more details from the city of Damascus.
Syria's government and citizens condemned the deadly attack to the Iranian scientists and called it an act of terrorism that affects the entire world and that must be condemned by the international community. A grateful attitude towards Tehran that stressed it will answer this crime and assured that together with Damascus it will continue to develop both countries' capacity to handle their common challenges.
Without a doubt, war imperialism and the Zionist regime are the ones behind the murder of scientific Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. They seek to weaken the capacity and scientific development of the resistance axis through this crime. Nevertheless, we assure that the resistance axis will continue on the path of scientific progress and it will have a new generation of scientists with the same capacity as the martyr Mohsen. The Iranian response is inevitable, and this response will undoubtedly be different in nature, time, place and size from the response that was given when the martyr Qasem Soleimani was killed. And this is because, although the Iranian Islamic Republic, the resistance axis and its friends blame the Zionist regime for Mohsen's murder, no enemy state has yet claimed responsibility for this crime.
In the same vein, resistance movements in occupied Palestine, Lebanon and Iraq expressed their strong condemnation of the Iranian physicist's assassination and ratified their support for Iran and its people that is threatened by foreign forces and conspiracies. They also indicated that in this crime, traces of the Israeli Zionist entity and the United States can be perceived in an attempt to destabilize the region, to harm Tehran and the resistance, and to stop the scientific and technical progress of the Iranian nation.
Scientist Musen's assassination is aimed at hindering and stopping the progress of Iranian nuclear program for peaceful purposes, and we are sure that the enemies will not achieve their goal, since the Islamic Republic of Iran will be able to repair the loss and will go ahead and continue with much more strength its nuclear program and its industrial, scientific and technical development.
Iran said goodbye to its prominent scientists in a solemn funeral ceremony. The country not only promised a harsh revenge to the perpetrators of the attack, but also assured that this crime will foster their scientific development, independence and self-sufficiency to hinder the enemy's plots against their national interests and the just causes of the other members of the resistance axis.
Hisham News, teleSUR, Oriente Medio.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.